friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith chapter. Brian Chapman, Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fith chapter. That's right. Welcome to the Fith chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian, and we're getting ready for episode number 42. And I'll just say one thing, Dennis. Don't you ever say anything smart during the show.
Well, I'll try not to, and I'll try to, when you're done talking, then make my point.
Excuse me. You just lost the left. You just lost the left.
Yeah. You know, there's nothing I dislike more than people constantly interrupting each other and talking over one another. A little bit of it, I'm all right with. Too much of it, like I saw the other night, makes my head hurt.
I don't know. You just lost the left by saying stuff like that. So, Dennis, you're going to have to interrupt anyway. But I want to thank everybody who is watching episode 42. We've got 5 fantastic chapters for you. After that debate, I don't know what network you were watching, but on CNN, Dan Abbas, one of their reporters, said, what we just watched was a shit show, and we can say that because we're on cable. And we certainly hope that over the course of episode 42, we don't provide that for you, and we hope that you guys aren't saying that about us once our show ends. Let's, before we take a look at today's book, I want to thank everybody who's watching via YouTube, via Facebook Live, and via Twitch. And as far and
well, I should interrupt the honorable gentleman there over on the right on my screen. Our network feed on Facebook. We need to connect that to get everybody on there. So if you can tell the associate producer that would be awesome. All right, there you go, chap.
All right. I will have the associate producer getting on that. It looked like it was streaming, but we'll try and reconnect it. But let's take a look at today's book in the meantime. And in the second chapter, we got a lot of MLB playoff headlines as you got the Minnesota Twins who keep on doing what the Minnesota Twins do, and that's just flat out losing. You got Marcell Ozuna of the Braves posing for a selfie after hitting a home run, a new celebration. And then you've got the manager for the Chicago White Sox panicking, and that is among other headlines that we'll get to in Major League Baseball. Also in the third chapter, what looked like it could be a great NBA Finals is having a big hiccup right now because not one, not two, but the top 3 scorers for the Heat have injuries. 2 of them might not play in tomorrow's game 2. Are we looking at a guaranteed sweep? In the fourth chapter, we finally got what appears to be a quality college football Saturday, at least in terms of the what the SEC is putting out there, with 2 top 13 matchups: Alabama, Texas A&M, Georgia, and Auburn. So we'll tell you what we think about those matchups, and then of course in the 5th chapter we've got the major wager. But Dennis, we'll start off with the first chapter, and that takes us to the Detroit Lions. And with the Lions, they've got this Week 4 matchup against the New Orleans Saints. And the Saints are 1-2, just like the Lions, a couple of desperate teams. The Saints are trying to be a Super Bowl contender, not looking like it right now. The Lions are just trying to get back into relevancy. You look at the injury front, Michael Thomas returning from practice for the Saints. He's their star wide receiver. They were 0-2 without him. The Lions are probably going to get their corner Desmond Trufant back. And lots of questions for the Lions defense, the run game, the coaching. At least Jack Fox, the punter, won NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. The Saints have questions about the arm strength of their quarterback, Drew Brees, and questions about their defense, giving up 71 points over the last 2 games. Saints are a 4.5-point favorite. Dennis, what are you looking forward to seeing, and will the Lions get another SOL victory to suck the fan base in as they head to the bye?
Well, that would be what the Lions were looking for, try to get a victory in this game. While I didn't see one the last 2 weeks, and heading into this one, you're looking at Michael Thomas, you're going to Alvin Kamara. It's just like it seems like it would be too much for a Lions defense, but they played so well last week and were able to frustrate Kyler Murray. If they can duplicate, if the Saints had a different record, it might be a different outcome. But the Saints, they would be in the same boat as the Lions here if they lost this game. And I just don't see that happening, especially with Thomas coming back. I know the air yards for Breeze are down. Look, it's going to happen to him. It's going to happen to Brady. It's going to happen to you, chap. You guys are going to get older, and you're not going to be as sharp as you once were. That is happening with Drew Brees. He is not Drew Brees from 5 years ago. Those air yards are down, but can he check down to Michael Thomas and Kamara and still be effective? And, the Saints make the playoffs? I think so. I think the bigger question is their defense. And, they've got good personnel. I think like Marshawn Lattimore, you watch him, at times he looks like one of the better corners in the league. And other times he just seems like he takes snaps off or whatever. So I don't know if they can figure that out or not. But if Thomas wasn't in this game, I'd feel a little bit better about the Lions being able to contain one star player. But I think with the 1-2 punch of Kamara and Michael Thomas, I don't see the Lions coming away with a victory in this one.
No, it's a challenge looking at this game because of all the factors you mentioned, and you look at Drew Brees being a dinking and dunking check down quarterback, unlike what he has been in the past, and I think that that leads you to believe that the Lions have a shot, and I think that when you consider the fact that the Lions have had some SOL wins at the beginning of seasons under Matt Patricia, that this is when they typically make their hashtag Patricia push. Think about how last year they started off slow, but they got to 3-1 before tanking down to 0-9 down the stretch. The year before that, they started off slow, then they got to 3-3 before going 3-7 down the stretch. This is the time where they make their Patricia push to give the Slappies something to think about. And when they're thinking about the Lions actually doing something, it's to the tune of being a 500 football team. They could obviously use that Patricia push to get to 500 if they win this weekend. Additionally, I was looking at some of the numbers, and the Saints have been killed by penalties to start this season. They're averaging 8 penalties for over 108 penalty yards per game. That's over the length of a football field. I already mentioned 71 points allowed in the first 2 games. So I'm very tempted to take the Lions to make a Patricia push for the playoffs early on in the season to get a win. I'm not going to, because I think they can still make that Patricia push after the bye with the Jags, Falcons, Colts, Vikings, Washington, FT, and Panthers as the 6 teams right after the bye. But I think that Lions fans shouldn't be surprised if they eat the W. I still think the secondary is going to be lit up by Drew Brees, because he's not going to make the same mistakes that Kyler Murray made with throwing 3 interceptions, and they're going to have Michael Thomas back. So I look at this as a victory as well for the Saints.
Yeah, one thing about being a Lions fan, you head into the season, you got the opener there, and you're thinking, hey, you know what? This is a team that could go anywhere from 7-9, 9-7, like 75% of NFL teams. So you're encouraged heading in against the Bears, and then, to see DeAndre Swift drop that pass, and it felt like, wow, this one's going to come back to bite them. And even though nobody predicted that they were going to win at Green Bay, to get worked over like they did, suddenly 0-2. You start, completely changing, like, wow, maybe we can lose all the games and we could be in the quarterback sweepstakes and be in one of the bottom 3 teams. Maybe we could get rid of Patricia and Quinn by week 4, and you start getting all excited about that. Then they come back and post that W. So now you're a little confused. Like, it's like, wait a second, what are we doing? Are we hoping that they lose so we can get rid of the coaching staff or the front office and ultimately the quarterback? Or are we hoping we win so we can get back to 2-2 and at least be entertained and possibly be in the mix of the NFC North? It's confusing to being a Lions fan.
Yes.
I would tell Lions fans, I get wanting to have Patricia and Quinn out, and I know you want them out today. Unless Stafford gets injured like he has the last 2 years, this team is not going to be in the bottom 5, certainly in the bottom 3 where you'd want to be to draft one of those top quarterbacks. So, it's one of these things like, go ahead, hope that they lose, but how many are they really going to lose with Matt Stafford as their quarterback?
Well, I agree. They're not going to go 3-13 if Matt Stafford's healthy, but I'm not predicting that Matt Stafford's going to stay healthy, considering he's broken his back each of the last 2 years. I predicted last year. I'm not happy about this, but I predicted last year that he would break his back for the second consecutive year, and he did. It seems like he's got a chronic a broken back problem. So, obviously, new right tackle, new right guard. He hasn't been hit a heck of a lot this year, but it only takes a couple of bad games or a couple of bad weeks, and all of a sudden, another broken back, and he's out. So I'm not sitting around hoping for it or betting on him to break his back again, but I'm assuming it's going to happen. And if it doesn't, yeah, they'll have a shot to win 6 or 7 games. If not, they'll be in that 5 or less category.
Yeah, and then if you're a Lion fan listening to you, you say, you know what, Chapman's right. They'll probably just win enough games, and probably right at the end, to keep themselves out of the 4-win range. They'll win like 2 of their last 3.
Yes,
and that would really get everybody excited. But we've seen that. Like, that's just something you fear in the back of your mind when you're a Lions fan, because you've seen it so many times before. So I get that.
And then they finished with the number 5 pick, and Justin Fields goes number 4.
Yeah, that's right. Like, you feel like you'd be just like out of the money in poker terms. That's usually what that happens with the Lions. Now, they've been busted, been the first out before, but they've also been that last out of the money a bunch of times. And one of you play to hopefully cash in. It's the one thing with the Lions fans. They go to the poker table. They always end up broke. No matter if they're first out or if they're the last one out of the money. It's always been the same story with them. They come out with no money in their pockets.
Oh, that's a great analogy. I've got the Saints winning 31-20.
You know what? Those are around the scores that I picked for the first 2 games. And this one, I'm just going to bump it up. I'm looking for a shootout in this one. I think the Saints are going to put up 38. I think the Lions will get to 30. So I like the over. A lot of points in this game.
Yeah, well, with 2 shoddy defenses, that's a possibility. You want to get some feedback or turn the page?
Well, let's see what's coming in on the feedback. We've got Paul coming in. We're talking about people, just posting L's about the Lions here. Keith says the Lions are going to lose this one after winning their biggest game of the year last week. I still think hell is freezing over. Did I ever tell you that I hate the Lions? And he has a smiling emoji face. Yeah, well, Keith, you still seem like a Lions fan because you comment on them all the time, and you talked about how you wanted them to pick Tua. But I get that. There's Lion fans who have just been loyal and get angry at Lion fans that are not loyal at the team. So there's that fighting back and forth. And we know what kind of Lion fan you are, and it's okay. I don't think you're in the majority, Keith, but there's a lot of Lion fans just like you.
Yeah, a lot of Lions fans who are sick of the team. Now, obviously, if they go 11-5, they're going to be rooting hard for them to win that road playoff game. But until the team shows them something, and particularly this regime shows them something that is different, I think a lot of them are going to assume that it's the same, and they're not going to be tricked by a game here, a game there, a month here, a month there. They want to see consistent winning. They want to see the Lions be what the Saints were. Even if they don't win a Super Bowl, just be what the Saints were. Even be what the Bears were under Lovie Smith. They got to the Super Bowl but couldn't win it all, and the Lions can't even win a playoff game. One since 1957.
I'm not one of those Lion fans that say, hey, I'm going to be loyal and I'm just always going to have this team and root for them no matter what. It's been a long time since I thought about that with the Lions. I'm in the position here where most of the time I don't root against them. There's been a few times over the last few years for draft position that I thought, it would be good if they went ahead and lost this game. But until they actually go to the playoffs and win a game, they don't get the benefit of the doubt for me. That's what it's about here. It's a really a step that they have to achieve to get any kind of loyalty or to be able to get like some kind of full fandom for me. Not just going to the playoffs, but going and then winning that game. I'm not talking about Super Bowl or NFC Championship game. Winning a playoff game, they'll restore a lot of what most fan bases have towards their team. For me, anyways, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think if they can win a couple of playoff games, then we can start talking about no more same old Lions. But until then, you're going to be seeing a whole lot of that. Lions fans wearing paper bags over their heads, even if they're not allowed to go inside the stadium.
Well, that's your narrative. A couple playoff games. I said they got to win a
Yeah.
playoff game for me to look at them differently.
Well, the reason I say a couple is because they already did win one playoff game back in 1991, and that didn't change anything.
Well, no, they had a terrible owner, and they had a bad front office, and they had a bozo as a coach.
Yep.
So they had three really bad things.
Yep. I agree with that. All right, let's turn the page now to the second chapter.
Yeah, and for that, we get to the Major League expanded playoffs, which are going on right now. They had a 60-game sprint. We talked about if it was going to mean anything, and then during the season, the commissioners or I guess they right at the last minute, they said, okay, we're going to have 16 teams in because they were debating that.
Yeah.
This is what it is, and we've got a best of 3 in the first round. So a lot of different things to cover here with Major League Baseball and the expanded playoffs. What do you think of it, Jeff? They've been going on here for a few days. What have you thought by watching some of these games?
Yeah, I haven't been able to watch as much as I wanted to because I went to go play golf with my dad yesterday. We only got to play 11 holes because of the rain, and then obviously I have to do my Ubering. But one thing that stands out is the streaks, and there are a lot of streaks. You look at the Reds, and they had a streak of not scoring. They played 2 games, didn't score a run, and I believe they set the all-time record for postseason innings or innings to start a postseason without scoring when they got to inning 18. But they had the 13 inning game yesterday where they didn't score, and then they got shut out in 9 innings today. So 22 scoreless innings by their Reds offense with Nick Castellanos in the offense. That was a pretty bad streak for them, but the Braves get to advance around in the playoffs for the first time in a long time. The A's, just before our show started, they ended their streak of not winning a playoff series. So many times they had lost a clinching game, particularly to the Detroit Tigers, but they advance against the White Sox, and of course the Twins. This is they're almost like the Detroit Lions of Major League Baseball. I had them winning their first round series against who the heck did they play in the first round? I forget. Anyway, I had them winning their first round series, and they ended up losing in 2 games, losing their 17th and 18th. They've lost 18 consecutive playoff games, and obviously during that time they're not advancing a series. Meanwhile, the Lions, no playoff wins since 1991. And I was thinking, what's worse? Is it being a Twins fan or being a Lions fan? The only reason that you could say that perhaps it's worse to be a Twins fan is because they've actually had legitimate expectations. When the Lions go to the playoffs, they usually get in as the 6th seed or the 5 seed, the worst team to make the playoffs, and then they lose by a couple touchdowns, no big deal. Last time everyone knew they were going to lose to the Seahawks, and they lost 26-6. But the Twins, they go in there like this year. They had a great offense, and they got smoked. Kenta Maeda didn't have a great start in Game 1 on Tuesday. You look at last year, they win 100 games and can't win a playoff series. They get swept. Under Ron Gardenhire, they didn't go in there with a bunch of bums. Yes, they played the Yankees a bunch of times, but they had Cy Young Award winners, they had batting champions, they had MVPs, and they still get swept. It's ridiculous. At least the Lions are meeting expectations or exceeding them when they just get to the playoffs. When the Twins can't even win a game, they just flat out choke.
Yeah, they have. I mean, it's a huge story. What were going to be the big stories is if the A's in a clincher couldn't get it done, and they were able to. And you already mentioned the Reds not posting up those goose eggs. That's a pretty big deal. But then, yeah, the Minnesota Twins here each and every year, and you're right. And they had America rooting for them. Nobody wanted to see the Astros advance.
Yes,
here they are.
Right.
They're the hated Houston team. So I did notice one thing that you were tweeting during one of the games. I watched a little bit of the Twins Astros, and they were talking with Nelson Cruz during the game.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And you were mentioning of somebody else that was being interviewed, but Cruz, it was just I'd say it was uncomfortable. It's a playoff game. And they're sitting around here shooting the breeze, making jokes about, hey, well, who showed you the ropes when you were coming up, Nelson? You know what? If it was spring training, you want to throw the headset on somebody during the game, all right. But playoffs, and you're over there, and you want to get a question in or something? All right, but these guys were like filling time, having them on the whole inning. They've done some of that, but I found it uncomfortable, and I clicked when I was watching it, and then I noticed that you were also complaining about it via Twitter. I don't know if that was today or yesterday.
No, that was today. It was in the A's White Sox game. It was that that 4 or 5 hour game that just ended. In the third inning, ESPN mic'd up Ramon Laureano, the center fielder for the A's, and the first batter gets a double to center field. He's a center fielder, so he fields the ball at the wall, and then he says, effing fast or something like that. So a curse word gets on the air, but he's talking about how fast Luis Robert was, and then he's catching his breath. He's talking to the broadcast team. Then there's a fly out to center field, so they get him doing that. And there's an RBI single to center field. Then the next batter, an RBI double to right center field. The right field or left center field, the left fielder got it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I get that you get some insight, but the guy is out of breath. You're talking to him when he's trying to focus in a clinching playoff game, in a winner-take-all game. Laureano handled it well, but I know that when I was playing baseball back in high school, which is obviously different than playing in the pros with a clinching game on the line, if my pitcher is getting hammered, and think about it, double, fly out, RBI single, RBI double. If my pitcher's getting hammered and all of a sudden we're losing, the last thing I want to do is have a conversation between each pitch with fake news media members about what's going on. I'm trying to focus on winning the game, and they're just trying to get some sound bites. I thought that was terrible.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't know why I felt bad for the Indians last night. They have the great first inning, and they're going along there, and then I see DJ Major saying DJ LeMahieu ain't going to Detroit. Dennis, all the AL Central's a joke. 3 teams combined for 1 win. LeMahieu had the big hit there for him, a seeing eye single, but it was just a dream, DJ. That's what I'm just hoping for. It's the local connection. It's a need for the Tigers. It would be like, we always beat the Yankees in the playoffs, but this would be stealing one of their players and making your own team better. So it all lines up. I'm hoping. I don't have much faith in the Tigers front office to make that move, but it's a move that I would like to see, and it would be awesome for Detroit. But the one thing about these 3-game series, I like them a lot better than just the 1 games, and I like the 1 game, but obviously it's not a series. This is a series. You can feel like if the Reds get blanked in 1 game, you chalk it up, say, oh man, we just didn't have it. Tip your cap to the pitcher. You have 2 games. You can't go over there, start tipping your cap twice in consecutive days as you get swept. Yeah. And it feels like, it feels like we're used to longer series. So when you get swept away in a 2-game series, it kind of feels like, you were in a series. And it hurts more than just that 1 game, and where it's a wild card. They're gonna have to adjust the schedule, figure out how to do it. But I like the best.
Well, in the regular season, you don't play 1-game series. You play 3 or 4-game series, occasionally 2, but 3 or 4. So it does make it more similar to the regular season. A couple other things I wanted to point out during that White Sox A's game today. I thought that Rick Renteria panicked and handled that situation poorly because it's obviously the clinching game. He's got his rookie Dane Dunning out there who was pitching very well this season. And, first inning, 2 outs, man on first base, 0-0 game. And in the 15th pitch of the inning, guy hits a single. So runners on the corners. No big deal because Dunning's in a bit of a jam. But to Rick Renteria, it was terrible. He yanked him out of the game 2 outs into the game for Garrett Crochet. Now, Crochet is a great rookie. He was drafted just this year. He throws 100 miles per hour. He got the next batter out, but to start the 2nd inning, he got 1 batter out, and then he left with an injury, and he ended up using 9 pitchers. I thought that Rick Renteria panicked throughout that game, just pulling out pitchers left and right, and it started with that first pitcher, and if it hadn't been for taking out Dane Dunning early in that game, he might not have had to go with 9 pitchers. It might have won the game. I was hoping the White Sox would lose after that happened.
Yeah, well, as DJ points out, it wasn't a great showing here by the AL Central.
No.
And That's it for any local. Now it's about the Yankees and A's and the Dodgers and um,
The
that's it,
Braves,
man.
yeah. And did you?
Yeah, maybe the Braves.
And speaking of the Braves, did you see Marcell Ozuna's pose?
Oh, the selfie.
Yeah, for those that didn't see it, he hit a big home run. It was 1-0. Obviously, the Reds didn't score 1-0 in the eighth inning. He hit a 2-run home run, and about 2/3 of the way to first base, he stops and pretends he's posing for a selfie, and then continues running. And obviously, there's been for years discussion about celebrations and watching your home runs and things like that after you hit it. What did you think about that celebration?
Yeah, I'm all right with it. The one thing I'm not all right is that I think the Reds next year will probably stick one, in his back the first time, as they got long memories and everything, and that's the problem with baseball.
Yeah.
In football, I used to say, hey, let's act like we've been there before, but people like it. People like the celebrations. People like the extended celebrations, and I think more people would like it in baseball. There's too much little stodginess in baseball. Let them have some fun. Let's see how it goes. If it gets crazy and guys are doing cartwheels and,
Like
maybe you feel
Aroldis
like,
Chapman.
yeah, maybe you start feeling like, you got to make them dance a little bit by throwing the pitch. But it's always back to that in baseball. The pitcher's got a short fuse. They got long memories. And so you'll be watching a game next year in July, and all of a sudden there'll be a bunch of beanballs, and they'll say, well, you remember the postseason last year
Yeah.
when there was that selfie? So it's really going to come. I don't mind it. I'd like to see a little bit more of that, but it's going to be up really to the players. They have to police the game, and they've got to allow that. And a lot of them, as much as they, talk about expanding the game and everything else, they want to make it like it always was. The ball, we're the one policing the game. You better run around the bases in a timely manner and touch home, or we're going to bean you.
Yeah, I hit a home run. I can do what I want. I mean, honestly, I wasn't a fan of the selfie celebration. I didn't think it was all that interesting, and I was kind of I didn't understand what he did at first until they showed a replay. I'm okay with the bat flips. I'm okay with taking a little extra time running around the bases. I didn't think that he did anything wrong. I just wasn't a fan of that
Trevor
particular.
Bauer doing a tomahawk chop at the Braves in Game 1 when he was coming off the mound after he was walking by somebody. So, there's a little smack talk, like back and forth. And
you don't like it, hit him.
We know the closers are always. We've seen that once they win a game, they're out there, doing their thing. So let's have a little bit of that, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah, I like having a little bit of fun out there as well.
A little fun from Chap. All right.
Oh, I've always been a big advocate of the bat flips and the celebrating of their home runs. The selfie just I didn't. First of all, I didn't get it at first, and then I just didn't think it was that great of a celebration. Let's turn the page to the third chapter, and that takes us to the NBA Finals. On Tuesday, I predicted the Lakers would win in 6. Dennis, you had the Miami Heat winning. Did you have it in 6 or 7?
6.
6? Yeah, so we both actually had the Miami Heat winning Game 1, and we weren't correct about that, and we weren't close to being correct about that. The Heat had a nice 13-point lead in the first quarter. I thought, hey, they punching LeBron James, they're punching the Lakers in the mouth early on, and they'll get a nice 1-0 lead. They didn't even keep that lead through the end of the first quarter. The Lakers poured it on in the second quarter, and it was over before the half. And to make matters worse, the Heat suffered injuries to arguably their 3 best players, their 3 top scorers, a nasty ankle turn by Jimmy Butler, who surprisingly stayed in the game. I thought he was going to be done for the series, but stayed in the game. Goran Dragic suffered a plantar fascia tear in his left foot, and he's doubtful for Game 2. And Bam Adebayo suffered a neck strain and is doubtful for Game 2. Dennis, what do you think about your prediction and the state of the series now, with it being 1-0 Lakers and those 3 critical injuries to the Miami Heat?
Well, if it wasn't for the 3 critical injuries, I would panic, but I would also look to, Dragic and Duncan Robinson throwing up a goose egg in Game 1, and Tyler Hero. They need those 3 to be knocking down threes, not putting up bagels. And when you got Rajon Rondo and
KCP had a big game.
Danny Green, KFC, you're right. I like to call him KFC. He hit those consecutive threes there. That was a big push there for the Lakers in the first half. But, man, Anthony Davis, when he's knocking down threes, you're in big-time trouble. But I wouldn't be panicking as much. But I know I've never had a torn plantar fasciitis, but I've had plantar fasciitis, and it's like somebody takes a knife and sticks it right in your heel. And if he's doubtful and has a tear there, as a point guard, I can't see him playing. I don't know about the neck or shoulder injury for Bam and the ankle. That'll be something to keep an eye on, too, once you're playing in the game, once it swells up and everything with Jimmy Butler. But, yeah, obviously, they miss any of those 3 games, this is going to be a very short series. The way that Davis plays defense, the way he's got it going on offense, and LeBron, man, he can smell it.
Yeah, he can smell it as well. I think that once they got that lead on the Denver Nuggets, they were just determined to close it out and to close out not just the series, but close out the season, get out of that bubble, and go home to LA with the championship. I was tweeting after I saw these injuries that the Lakers are going to win this in 3. And I'm just glad that the MLB playoffs are on at the same time as the NBA Finals, because we've gone, I think, very quickly from a fascinating matchup before the series started to one that's going to be pretty close to unwatchable. Like I don't know that I'm going to be watching much of the second half of these games unless the Heat completely surprise me with healthy players, smoking the Lakers in the first half. Because if LeBron James and Anthony Davis smell blood in the water and you're without Dragic and Adebayo, then all of a sudden it's Jimmy Butler and the Lakers can focus defensively on Hero and Duncan Robinson. Hero and Duncan Robinson, whether they're the number 4 and 5 options, they can be pretty deadly. When they're the number 2 and 3 options behind Jimmy Butler, it's a major problem. And when the Lakers supporting cast, as it was in Game 1, was more productive than the Heat supporting cast, which I thought was an edge for the Heat going into the series, it's a big problem. I think we're unfortunately, as NBA fans, going to have to deal with consecutive NBA Finals ruined by injuries. Last year, the Warriors were clearly the more talented team. They probably should have won that series in 4 or 5, but with no Durant and with Klay Thompson out for most of the NBA Finals, the second best team in the Raptors won.
Yeah, good point. I mean, not much more you can do there. We'll wait and see what the status is. But, you want entertaining games, fourth quarter, one-possession games, and we didn't get that. Now with these injuries, that doesn't look promising either. You ready to go to the 4th chapter?
Well, just one more thing about it. A lot of folks were comparing the Miami Heat to the 04 Pistons. And, number one, the Pistons never got smoked in that series. The one loss they had was in Game 2 thanks to a clutch shot by Kobe Bryant. But number 2, they didn't have injuries to Rip, Chauncey, and Sheed heading into Game 2. So I think those comparisons are going to disappear into thin air.
Yeah, it seems like it is out the window right now. I was one making that comparison myself, as you know. But, yeah, you got to keep the games close or win if you're going to be the 04 Pistons, and that didn't happen. So, all right, that does get us to the 4th chapter.
Yes, it does.
And that gets us to college football. And you said something in the intro that we finally have some games that are lined up. I thought last Saturday it was a good 3-window game. You had some good games there with Kansas State upsetting Oklahoma. I started out watching Auburn and Kentucky. You got to the 3:30 games. There was some entertainment there, and then all the way to 7:30. Not that the 7:30 game ended up being a good one with the Canes rolling, but on paper, they were good games. And we've got a menu when you look at noon. Florida's playing 3:30. You got Texas A&M visiting Alabama. That's a top 25 matchup. And then you got another top 25 matchup at night between the Hedges with Auburn and Georgia. This is the second consecutive week where it's going to really feel like college football if you're somebody that likes to take the whole day and watch it.
Well, the reason I think this week is different is because last week, I know you mentioned on paper that they were good matchups, but on paper heading into the matchups, they weren't all that good. Like, I don't think most people were thinking that Mississippi State versus LSU was going to be that competitive, or the Oklahoma game is going to be that competitive. But when you look at, for instance, these 2 games in particular in the SEC, you got 2 top 13 matchups, 2 versus 13, 4 versus 7, not just, hey, can there be some surprising upset that nobody's going to think about?
Well, you know what? Sometimes, like, you go in, like, it was a top 25 matchup on paper of actually Auburn and Kentucky, and that game was good for actually 3 quarters. But no, you didn't really think Kansas State was going to pull the upset like they did last year.
Correct.
And then here they were doing it again. So that ended up being really entertaining. Like I didn't realize, because I was watching the other game, that Texas was able to come back at a flurry in overtime against Texas Tech. That ended up being fantastic. If you stuck through and watched games at 12 o'clock to 3:30, it was exactly what you want if you're a college football fan. Thrilling, engaging, and unpredictable games.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
No, I'll give you that. But certainly this week with a couple of top 13 matchups, a couple of a top 7 matchup, Georgia versus Auburn. When I look at this game in particular, I've got Auburn pulling off the upset. It's at Georgia. Both teams have great defenses. I was seeing that both teams they're 1 and 2 respectively in the SP Plus defensive rankings. I don't know what that is, but ESPN mentioned that in one of their articles on their website. But I look at how they fared in their openers. You mentioned Auburn played Kentucky, and Auburn's offense scored 29 points against a solid but not great Wildcats team. Georgia scored 5 points in the first half against Arkansas, and for Big Ten fans who have been following, Arkansas has lost 20 consecutive conference games. Now, they turned it on more in the second half, but 5 points in the first half is pretty bad. They have massive quarterback problems. It was supposed to be Jamie Newman, a grad transfer, but he opted out due to the Rona. Then it was redshirt freshman Dwan Mathis from Oak Park, and he started the game and had 55 yards passing at the half, so they benched him. Then they threw in Stetson Bennett IV, who was a former walk-on for the second half. They might end up starting USC transfer JT Daniels on Saturday because the doctors cleared him to start. They have 2 new starting tackles. Obviously, JohnDre Swift is in there. I'm going with Auburn in the more consistent, reliable offense in a game with 2 stout defenses.
Yeah, well, I like that pick. You know what? When you got quarterback problems, and the thing about Bo Nix as a QB for Auburn, I don't have the guy's name in front of me. He caught 2 touchdowns against Kentucky, but he looks like the first, second-round pick to me. A guy could go up, high point the ball. They had 3 guys around him. He was just going up, snatching it out of the air. I don't think there's a couple good. Georgia's got a couple good wide receivers, but nobody that's as good as this guy from Auburn. So you got a combination with Nix and this kid. I can see him pulling the upset.
Yeah, and
I'm with you.
And who is taking all these number 1 snaps? If you've got a guy in Jamie Newman who's probably taken all the offseason number 1 snaps, and then he leaves, and then you got Bennett and Mathis and Daniels all battling for first-team snaps. I mean, how much chemistry are they going to have? You look at that other top 13 matchup, I don't know that there's any reason to think this is going to be close. I think that, Alabama is Bama. They've got a ton of returning starters on offense and another NFL defense. And meanwhile, Texas A&M beat Vanderbilt 17-12 last week. I mean, you have a 1-possession game against Vanderbilt. That says all you need to know, and it looks like Texas A&M is overrated. There should be a lot of pressure on Jimbo Fisher because he won that championship at FSU. He got that monster contract to go to A&M. He's accomplished nothing. He barely beat Vanderbilt, and I know that A&M fans would probably be thrilled with a moral victory at Alabama, 10-point loss. But you don't get paid, $75 million or whatever to get moral victories, and certainly not just to eke it out against Vandy.
Yeah, they've been doing a good job, Jimbo, recruiting, but you got to come up on the field. You're right. When you got a big, fat contract, got a good quarterback here as well. But it's the one thing when you watch Alabama over the years here with other SEC teams, even if, LSU, you just want to see teams see if they can even take it into the fourth quarter because most time Alabama's just going out there and housing and boat racing people. So that's what I would expect in this game, too. Alabama, looking at what they were doing last week, pretty impressive. And then at night, we went to the Auburn game. The Texas A&M, guess we're working from late to early. Mm-hmm. You got Florida, and, we'll see out of that 12 o'clock window. We'll check in just to see a little bit. But the Gators, impressive all the way up to number 3. So one of the top teams, something to check out there on Saturday. I wanted to ask you a question because Mississippi State went in and Mike Leach's first game and beat the defending champs, LSU. First time that the defending champ had lost since Michigan in '98 when Tom Brady lost to Notre Dame on the road. All right, but Mike Leach goes in there to Mississippi State. His quarterback throws for over 500 yards. He has the air raid offense there. And the question is, chap, Mike Leach's debut so successful, and he's successful at that air raid. Do you think an NFL team will come calling and name Mike Leach head coach of an NFL team?
No, I don't think they're going to call it because I don't think that Mike Leach has any interest. I was actually reading an article on ESPN.com earlier today about Leach and the air raid offense, and a lot of it was talking about his affinity for the SEC. He had coached in the South before, and then he went to Washington State, and while he was there, he basically had an interview for the Tennessee job until their athletic director, I guess, got fired on the way back from Washington State to Knoxville, Tennessee. So he didn't get the opportunity to get that job, and then they hired somebody else. But he's been wanting to be in the SEC for so long. This is like, pretty much his dream job. And then you look at what he's done, at places like Washington State. A couple years ago, had the 10-2 record with Gardner Minshew, but then he's just as likely to have a 6-6 team. He's got explosive offenses with no defenses. Certainly, he could hire himself a premium defensive coordinator, and it looks like things are working out for Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona after he was 5-7 in his last college stop. But I don't think that Mike Leach has any interest whatsoever in going to the NFL. I think he just always has wanted to be an SEC coach.
Yeah, I'll take your word for that. But I think if an NFL team came calling and you looked at him and handed him the keys to the franchise, I mean, it's not like he's ever it's not like Mississippi State is any job that anybody, even in the SEC, has been ever clamoring for. Certainly Washington State, Texas Tech. He's one of these guys that just goes to outposts and has had success. So it would actually fit if a team like the Lions, he would. They're kind of the Mississippi State or Washington State and Texas Tech of the NFL.
Or Arkansas of the NFL.
Yeah, something like that. But, if he was a more buttoned up head coach like Cliff Kingsbury or like another one of his proteges, Lincoln Riley there at Oklahoma, who is an air raid disciple, then people would be like, yeah, man, let's get Lincoln Riley, great play caller. Well, that's what, Leach taught those guys, the air raid. I just think if he had more of the look of that buttoned up, he's a funny guy, he likes to dominate the news conferences with funny stories, and he'll go on, which would make it really entertaining in the NFL. But I just think what's missing there is the look for him, that he just doesn't have that buttoned up NFL look that teams would be looking for. So that shouldn't be what teams are basing things on, but that's just my read on the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think in his entire career he's ever even been linked to an NFL job. And typically before you get an NFL job, you get linked to one. So I don't see him being like the next Matt Rule.
Let's change it. You ready?
Okay, you're linking him.
Mike Leach to the Detroit Lions.
That's your hope. Although, have you heard the I don't know if it's continued now that the Lions have won a game, but wasn't there some chitter chatter about wouldn't it be cool if the Detroit Lions got Dabo Swinney and Trevor Lawrence?
I don't know who made that up. That sounds like somebody that's doing a show like this just threw it out of left field.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it was. But I mean, when you're a Lions fan, what else do you have to hope for?
Well, you could hope for Urban Meyer and Justin Fields.
Yeah, well, guess what Urban Meyer would do? He would lose the first 5 games, or he'd start out 2-8, and I got injuries again. I've got health issues. My heart is I got coronavirus. I'm gonna have to quit again because that's what Urban Meyer does.
Well, no, what Urban Meyer would do if he was following his track record in Florida and Ohio State, he would come in, he would win a championship, and then when things went, and he had a bunch of off-field incidents. That's when all of a sudden he had 4 guys, and that's what would happen with Urban Meyer. Not right off the bat.
He would never. He only wants to coach road games in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't seem like he's just like he's never coming to Ann Arbor. Doesn't matter how much money they throw at him. He's not coming to. I couldn't see him, stepping foot in Ford Field and taking the Lions job. The Browns, the Bengals. Something like that I could see. So, yeah. All right, chap, that gets us to Major Wager.
Yes, it does, and obviously my bets have been pretty wickedly horrible recently. I had the Miami Heat winning the game on Wednesday. I forget what I picked on Tuesday. I think it was a baseball game, and I lost it. But today I've got the Padres minus 1.5 at plus 120, and I don't know. Did that game start yet? I don't think it started yet. But I had the Cardinals winning this series, so I wasn't surprised that they won yesterday. And I think the Padres are a better team. But I think the Cardinals will win. But they're not going to sweep with Machado, Hosmer, Tatis. I think those guys will find a way to get to Wainwright in that bullpen. I think that the Padres will show the world how dynamic their offense is for just one game.
Yeah, you know what? If I wanted to bet right now, it sure feels like the winner of the the Yankees and Rays are going to play the Dodgers. So I would put some money on that. But there's so many other things to gamble on that I went to the NFL, and I'm just going to throw 2 games your way. I'm going to take the Bills at the Raiders. Buffalo's minus 2.5, and I'm taking the Colts minus 2.5, taking on the Chicago Bears. So I'm going to put 50 on both of those games. So rolling with the Colts and the Bills this week, and we'll see how I do. My bet for $25 to win like $93.50 with that money, or it was a money line on the Heat, not looking so good after week 1.
That was not a good one. As far as football bets, I would just say I would take Alabama minus 18 over the weekend, Vandy plus 21. And then on Sunday, Saints minus 4 or 4.5. I'd take the Cardinals minus 3.5, the Rams minus 12.5, and I think the Eagles will bounce back, take them plus 7.
All right, chap. My wife just texted me. She is home with a gigantic grocery order. She needs me outside. So we'll tell you that we will see you Tuesday on the 5th chapter. And thanks for watching. For Brian Chapman, I'm Dennis Fithy, and so long.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten, be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the 5th chapter. Brian Chapman, Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast, or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the 5th chapter.